basically every year. But after 3 weeks of training camp, how do you feel the execution of maybe some of those new layers have looked?
Yeah, I think we've made progress since day one. We keep adding things as we go here and evaluate where we're at. And look, you're still trying to build a foundation. We're still in training camp mode. I mean, that's what it's going to be today. It'll be a tough practice, full pads. And you're just trying to improve your craft. Right now, we're really focused on our basics, right? Fundamentals of blocking, pad level, protecting inside out, keeping the depth and the width of the pocket, knowing who to block and when to block them, making yards after you catch, getting open, catching the ball, decision making. I mean, at the end of the day, you can have a million different plays, but you have to do those fundamentals well, and you build them in training camp. That's where you have to. That's where you have to do it. As the season gets on, there's less and less padded practices, so. Preparation and practice usually lead to game reality, and that's what we're trying to do is just string good practices together. And we've done that to this point. Got a long way to go.
From an offensive staff perspective, naturally you're reviewing the practice tape and the execution of maybe some of those new layers. How do you guys reach decisions on, let's give this one a little more time, I think it's coming, it'll work, or let's toss it, it's not going to work?
Yeah, good question. We had something we did in OTAs and didn't look great, and we tried it out here in camp here with the pads on a few times, and it didn't look great. And at some point you just have to cut bait and focus on the things that look a little bit better. But I think there's merit in trying new things and always trying to evolve of where you're at. And then there's a certain point, Chris, where you just know, look, this whether we're not coaching it right or it just doesn't fit the guys we have, that you just kind of move on and focus on other things. But again, there's a lot of plays in our system. We try to practice them all, whether that's out at practice or in a walkthrough, just to try to steal reps. And then you're evaluating it every day, both schematically, which is important, and then does it fit the players that we have and allow them to use their strengths the way they can use them.
So that said, when you have so many returning parts, quarterback, all your staff is together, how much less time has to be spent on install to give you more time to spend on these other things that you're talking about?
Well, I don't think you can really shortcut sale. You have to really take time, and you can't assume they know it just because they've been here. There's always particulars and details that you have to coach. There's certain plays you can pass over that we've run 100 times since we've been here. But I think each year is so different, and there still are some new pieces, and those new pieces need to hear the way that we're teaching it, from the guys last year or the year before. So again, training camp and the things we're doing right now is really building a foundation, because once the season hits, you're going to have select game plans, but you might pull something that you do in day 2 of practice and training camp in the middle of the game, and those guys have to recall it and be able to go out there and execute it if you think that that's going to help you.
For the guys that you haven't seen in game situations, the young players or new players, when you can create a lot of stuff here, but when you see them even in the preseason games, is there specific things that you say, I want to see how this translates for a guy, maybe to adjust to different plays or whatever it happens to be?
Yeah, I mean, it's plays, Mike. It's situations. You might want to see some more third downs and see how the quarterback reacts under pressure when it's tighter coverage. Again, the preseason, you're getting some vanilla looks. So you're really seeing if those foundational things that I talked about earlier, if those guys can do that in game situations. Everything's being evaluated, whether they're out here on a practice field going against our defense, but, under the lights with some people in the crowd and having to do it and, under a little bit of pressure, I think that's part of the evaluation process.
When you go over tape with a young player,
sure,
after like the other day, or even this one, do you see a difference in them when they're looking at it after they've done it in a game situation?
No, they're pretty consistent. Look, different guys react to playing in game situations a little bit differently. Some of the guys that have been here, look, it's preseason game 1, some played, some didn't. But some of these younger guys that haven't played, you got a lot of respect. Each year, it's kind of a cool thing when you're in the preseason is watching these guys that have never played in an NFL game. And I had a couple of the guys on the offensive side of the ball talk to young guys. There was maybe 7 or 8 guys that haven't played the night before and share their experiences. You usually remember that first game. I know I certainly did when I started out coaching. I remember exactly where I was. You don't remember all of them, but that first game is kind of special. And at the end of the day, it's football. Everybody's going to have a little bit of anxiety. That's normal. You can't just push it aside. So it's cool to watch those young guys and see how they did when, Football is football, but it's something special. It's a dream of most of these guys to play in the NFL. So, that's kind of neat watching them.
You didn't use 12 personnel that much last year compared to a lot of teams. Do you think if the matchups warrant it, you'll be able to use that more if you want, if you think it's the matchups warrant it?
Yeah, Mark. I mean, we'll use any personnel if we think it warrants.
Yeah, but you did last year.
That's exactly right. But we'll use the personnel that we think that fits our offense and fits our quarterback to the best of our ability. And if we think there's a matchup there, there's always a give and take. You put another guy, you take another guy off. We liked what we had last year. This year, could it be different? Yeah, and it all depends on how we're doing out here and what goes on with it.
Do you think to some degree, every team, like you mentioned, the defenses are vanilla, your offense was vanilla. In preseason, you're not going to get definitive answers on some things till 3 or 4 weeks into the season. Like, for instance, how good is this package?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's you don't really know what you are yet. As the season unfolds, you kind of look. You're doing a lot of things out here in training camp. Some you're not doing in the preseason games. And again, to me, it's more a foundational layer of the fundamentals that you need to get better at. Out here, we can scheme and do all these different things against our defense, but at the end of the day, when you're evaluating, you're putting together a roster, you want to see if these guys can handle the big things. What are the big things? Can they get their pad level down? Can they move the line of scrimmage? Can they work their double teams? Can we make good decisions at quarterback? Can we gain yards when we give it to you as a running back? Can we get open and catch the ball? Like, those are the things at the end of the day that win games. That and understanding situational awareness. The plays and all that stuff, they're important, but these are more important, and this is what we're trying to evaluate.
Devin had a good game on Friday. What have you seen from him so far during camp?
Yeah, he's been a pro. It's a competitive room, but he's been consistent. He's been available. He's been dependable. Again, what's their job as a running back? Know who to block and block him in pass protection, get open and catch the ball when he's out in a route, and make yards when you handle the ball. Like, let's not make more of it than it is. That's your job. That's how you're going to be evaluated. And he's done a good job since he's been here. He's been available. He's been dependable. He's done the things we've asked him to do. And he strung some good practices together, I'd say, leading up before we played Detroit, and it translated. And a lot of times that happens. Sometimes it doesn't, but he's doing everything he can do to put himself in the best position to help us win. I'm very confident in him right now.
Are there elements of his game that you're seeing he's worked on and it's translated here from that maybe you struggled with a year ago and you're now seeing him reap the rewards?
I think he's a tireless worker. We work on different things in terms of catching the ball early on in practice, but he's just one of those guys that's a dependable player. And I think each year you're in the NFL, if you have talent and you have some instincts and you're willing to put the work in, you're going to progressively get better, and we've seen that with him.
What are some of when you're just running backs in general, the East-West versus North-South conversation, and we've seen him have wiggle when we've heard even Brandon when he was drafted say he can make people miss in a phone booth. Where is the balance with you coaching saying, we know you have that ability, but ultimately you need to go forward? Yeah,
I'll just go back, an old Hall of Fame coach that I have a good relationship with. They come in all shapes and sizes. They run all different ways, Barry Sanders is a little bit different than Walter Payton, who was a little bit different than Jim Brown. They're all a little different. At the end of the day, can they make yards when you give them the ball? Whether it's east and west, north and south, like, you evaluate a running back if they can gain yards. However they want to gain yards, like, let them be them. Good, and you're always trying to we haven't coached in a game since whatever it was, January. We haven't played in a game since January. So just a communication factor from, the coaches to the players, to get them on the field, to have the right guys in the huddle. We didn't have to burn any timeouts. Like, you're trying to, again, core fundamentals for everybody, and that starts with us as a coaching staff, trickles down to the players. And then assignment football, are they doing what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it on a consistent basis? And just go back to the things I talked about. You're really trying to focus on those fundamental things that at the end of the day really help you win football games.
Back to running back
Sure.
approach. Pass protection, how much goes into that evaluation? Is it right up there with everything else when you look at a free agent, a draft pick, all those kinds of things? And then or even when you say, hey, we have a foundation here, when we get them, we'll work with them on it.
Yeah, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. Know who to block and be able to block them. I mean, that's one of the evaluation processes for a running back. it's real simple. There's three things. I mean, that's what they do most of the time. Know who to block them, gain yards when you have the ball, and be able to get open and catch the ball. And it's basic, but it's an easy evaluation. When the players know what's expected, here's what we're looking at. It's no different than an interior guard position. Are we keeping the depth of the pocket so the quarterback can step up? Are we protecting inside out? Can we get movement at the line of scrimmage? Like, let's take care of the big things, the boulders as we call them here, and that's how we evaluate. And that's certainly important for a running back. Got to keep guys out of the middle of the pocket.
What do you think of the depth you have at offensive tackle right now?
I've been happy with the two young guys that we've picked. Deion's come back. You guys saw him take a couple reps. Daryl's been very consistent, probably one of our most consistent guys this camp. So it's good. Those young guys need as many reps as they can. We need to get Deion back out here and get going. But, I'm happy the guys with, who we have.
What did you see out of Cody Ford in his first preseason game? He spoke to the media, I think it was on Monday, and just looked like he was glowing and so happy he got that first game, and it said it felt so good for him. Yeah, I mean, he knew what to do and when to do it. He kept the depth of the pocket most of the night. He protected inside out. He got movement at the line of scrimmage. So again, we try to make it as clean as we can so the players understand what their role is, how they're being evaluated. He played with toughness and grit. He's going to have once we get going here in Chicago in a couple of days, he'll have a couple good players in the interior to deal with.
I'm sure there are a lot of pieces of the puzzle when it comes to whether or not Josh plays in a preseason game or this Saturday in particular. Is Deion Dawkins part of that, at least part of that puzzle, whether or not he's in the lineup?
Yeah, I think that's a great question for Sean. We really haven't talked about Chicago yet. We got a good hard day today. It's kind of gearing down here at the end of training camp before you get into this last game. So I'm sure we'll have discussions on all those things when we get to them. But right now we got quite a different bunch of situations we're working on today.
Brian, it seems like you've worked a lot with the running backs. We haven't seen much training camp last year just because of the pandemic. Really working with them with different catching drills. Yeah. Is that something new, something you picked up, something that you learned, or a focus that you wanted Devin and Zach to really improve this year?
Yeah, we're just trying to make the most out of our time, and I think that's a good time to do that. I learned a lot of those drills back when I was a receiver coach for some older veteran players that I've dealt with, and different ways to look at the ball, close one eye, throw a towel in front of them, lay down so you have to use your hands, quick hand, ball toss. I thought it'd be good for those guys. Running backs don't always have a chance to work on their hands as much during a practice. They're doing ball handling, pass protection, and all those things. So, the guys that aren't involved on special teams, I figured that'd be a good, 10 minutes to use and work with those guys in that skill set.
Brian, third year for Dawson Knox. From what you wanted him to accomplish over the offseason to what you've seen through 3 weeks of training camp now, what is the result?
Yeah, he's grown in our system. He's not thinking as much, which is really natural for any young player. I talked about Daryl. He's had a really good camp up to this point. So, it was good. We only threw the ball a couple times there with Mitch. One of them was to him, but he's been a consistent player for us. He's done a good job. He's put a lot of effort into the offseason, which is good to see. I think he's got a lot of I know the quarterback has a lot of trust in him. So, I'm glad we have him. I think he's done a really good job.
What do you think of what you've seen from John Feliciano, particularly how he looks having lost so much weight?
Yeah, I asked him for a secret. He didn't give it to me, unfortunately. But, he's come back a little lighter. I think he's got some good quickness to the second level. He feels good about his weight and where he's at. He's another guy that's having a pretty good camp. He's one of the leaders on our offense. He's got that toughness and grit about him that you look for in an offensive lineman. He looks a bit lighter on his feet.
Did you guys ask him to lose that weight, or did he kind of?
No, I think he just, he was a little bit bigger. I think he lost some his composition is pretty good, and he feels pretty comfortable. And I don't think that, the power part of the game up to this point, it's really showed in. So, I think it's helped his conditioning, his stamina. Time will tell.
Yeah, it's not traditional. His struggle, his physical rehabbing of virtually start to finish in 2020 was so. He won the Block Award, perhaps deservingly. Do you kind of evaluate his play last year? All has to be looked through at the lens of his physical situation.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, and how this year is a different year for him.
Yeah, I think you said it best, Mark. This year's it's a new year. What we did and what anybody did in the past really doesn't really matter. He's a good teammate. He did everything he could do to help us be as good as we can be. And I just say up to this point through the off season to where he's at now, his arrow's kind of moving up for us. And he's going to be in good, strong competition with the other guys we got inside. So it's been a good competition up to camp. But he's a good pro. He's a good teammate. He's done everything he can to try to put himself in the best position for our team.
You mentioned the other backs with Brieda, got a lot of time with a guy who's been around and learning the system. What have you seen from him? What did you see from him the other night?
Yeah, pro. I mean, he made some good runs. There was a couple runs where the line of scrimmage wasn't clean that he saved 2 or 3 yards that really make a big difference for your next play call, whether it's preseason or regular season. Dependable, knows what to do. I've talked about he's got some juice. Got a lot of confidence where he's at. He's done a good job in really the entire building. So sometimes it's hard for guys that come from different places and come into a new place. And, we kind of have our core set of values and principles that we believe in his organization, and he's fell right into line and done a really good job.
You need one?
Yeah, so not usual to have a guy in your system for 3 years and not see him play a game. Get Davis out there, he has the game that he has. Yeah. I mean, is that what you guys pretty much expected, or was that any bit of a surprise?
Well, no, I think you never really know until they get out there. But like we talked about it earlier, instincts and preparation. If you have some instincts, you're willing to prepare, and you have some talent, usually you have those 3 things, you're able to put it together and go out there and, for the most part, have as good of a performance as you can have. I mean, it's not always going to be perfect. There's going to be some trials and tribulations like we all face, but keep a positive attitude. He's been that. You guys know how I feel about Davis and what I think he brings to our football team. It was just good to see a good person who's worked as hard as he's worked, and, his failures or perceived failures really haven't defined him. They've more refined him, if you will. And that's the type of mentality that you appreciate about a guy like that.
How much does he help you off the field, Brian? Because we've heard, he's great in the room.
Yeah.
And he wants to be a coach. We know that, but he's not yet. You know what I mean? Yeah. So how much does he help you with that?
Yeah, he's great. He prepares really hard. He's upstairs, I'd say, quite often. Does a lot of work. I'd say he probably helps Josh, a great deal with all the work that he does and the stuff that he does on Thursdays and Friday nights. He's a valuable piece, but again, his job is not a coach, and I understand that. I know what he wants to become, and he's not there yet in his mind. He wants to go out there and play. So there's really a fine line how you deal with guys like that, because you respect what they're trying to do right now. Not looking forward 2 or 3 or 4 years, but he'll do anything to help the team.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.